All right, thanks everybody for joining us. I'm Cameron from LifeGrove. Thank you for being part of the event. We're really excited for you guys to be here. Today I'm going to bring you a short lesson about what Zen is and why it matters to you. So we're talking about the spring equinox, a time for new beginnings, a time for growth and development, whether it's, self-development or spiritual development. One thing that is true is that, religion has been a steadfast way of disciplining yourself in a way, right? It is a discipline in sorts. And Zen is no different. But if you ask anyone that is a Zen professional, what is Zen? It's a very hard question to define. It's a 3-letter word, but it's also could take 3 different books or 3 volumes of books to explain it. But what I want to do is offer you a way, if you're looking and if you're trying to find a way to put some structure into your life that brings you some peace, this is a way of doing that. All religion, all spiritual practices serve a point. Zen has been one that has stuck with me, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. So again, thank you everybody for being here. But let's talk about it. So what is Zen? Zen is a derivative, a branch off of Buddhism that kind of developed in China. So Buddhism's origins would technically be India, and then a section of that was up in China, and then it developed into Zen Buddhism, which is prominent in China still, but most prominent in Japan. And there's a couple stories about how Zen came to be, but one of the most reoccurring that appears is it happened after Buddha had been sitting under the Bodhi tree. After he had his moment of enlightenment, something came to him, some presence or some moment was so extraordinary that it led him to the idea of Zen, and that's where it came from. But then another story I shared about Zen, one that I love, and I don't know that there's validity to this story, but I do like the story and the idea. And that's what during one of Buddha's, Gautama's famous lectures, he was holding a flower. And that's it. He didn't talk. He didn't speak to anyone. He didn't engage anyone. He had all of his disciples sitting in front of him, and he was holding a flower and just looking at it and smiling. And then there was one disciple, one monk, that was looking back and also smiling. And the Buddha did silently acknowledge that disciple. And so some people have thought that that monk is the one who created Zen or understood it and then kind of developed this section that is also Zen. But let's talk about that process there for a minute. Like, what do you imagine, right? Like, what do you imagine was going through that monk's head when he or she was holding that flower and just contemplating it, right? Like, the Buddha's holding this flower, giving his lecture, and contemplating the flower, and then you have this one disciple that's sitting there smiling, right? For me, I believe this is because he was appreciating the flower for what it was, right? The importance of a lecture is to give wisdom, to give information, right? So that's why everybody was there. And instead of giving words and compiling a whole complex list of parables, he instead held the flower and appreciated the flower and smiled. And the one disciple who got it also was smiling because he also understood that the flower is just a representation of the wisdom. The wisdom that you're receiving is just to enjoy it, just enjoy life, right? Put your troubles aside, put your studying and your lectures and your practices aside, and then just take time to appreciate this flower. And what a beautiful concept that is, and what a strong indication that we're talking about, the ultimate self-development, which is having appreciation for all things and having compassion. So again, we talked about Buddhism. So Buddhism itself is not necessarily practicing Zen, right? So they are from the one source, however, not always practiced together. So there are Buddhists, and then there are also Zen Buddhists. And each section describes something different. There's not really one way. And if you read Zen parables or stories, you'll see where there's different Zen masters or different Zen disciples and monks that do different things. They don't all, receive enlightenment from the same way. Sometimes it's the passing of a bird or a slap across the face or a stream, something subtle and something so beautiful that happens in the blink of an eye, and then all of a sudden you get it. And that's what it is, right? That's what enlightenment is getting it. And what is getting it? What are we talking about? The way it is what you're getting. Life is the way it is. Holding the flower, this is a flower. You're appreciating it because it is a flower. It is what it is. It is the isness and the suchness of life. And that's what we are. The only thing that makes us different is that we have complex thinking and rational mind and logic, and we have all these things. That's what's different. But one of the best Zen teachers is a cat. Watch a cat. The cat just sits all day and looks out the window and observes things passing by. Maybe it goes and eats something, maybe it plays for a minute, and then it goes back to sleep. It's very simple. And the idea is that that's how we should be more like. At least here in America and in Western society, we have a problem with stressing ourselves out and giving ourselves too much to do with not enough time to do it, and worrying so much about things that haven't even come to pass yet. And then the collective teaching from a lot of Eastern philosophies is the present moment, be here now. And that's powerful, right? Just like Buddha holding the flower, they were there in the moment, and the disciple was watching and realizing the moment for what it was and recognizing this beautiful flower for what it was, and that was it. He wasn't worrying about what he was going to have for lunch. He wasn't worrying about how much reading he was going to have to do later. He just did it, and he just was there, happy to do it. Part of why meditation is so important is because meditation can teach us to sit still and be quiet, to kind of bring the ever-cluttering mind to, not a standstill, but instead of it being chaotic and messy, it flows easily like a stream. And if you listen or watch anything in relation to Zen, you'll see a lot of elemental references. And that's because they are trying to get you to understand that human nature is also not very different from regular nature. So why does this matter? We're in a time of changing, and we're in a time coming out of the pandemic and out of a scary situation. And for a lot of us in this time, we learned a lot about ourselves and had a lot of self-development. Maybe some are still working on it. But we're coming into the equinox, and it's time for change. It's time to do some spring cleaning, collectively taking all of our garbage and kind of throwing it out, keeping what we need and getting rid of everything else. Another very, famous Zen or Buddhist, teaching is letting go. And that's what I want you to take away from this short lesson is all of this, right? This is all just, and I'm going to borrow this from Alan Watts. Alan Watts, when describing Zen and religion, period, talked about, when you need to cross a stream, you need a boat to do it. And in this case, the stream is life, and the boat is religion or spiritual practice. And you use it to get from one point to another. Once you cross the stream, you don't keep carrying the boat with you. You leave it where it is, and then you keep on going with your life. And so what I want you to take away from this and from all of these things is that if they don't serve you, if whether it's a spiritual practice or school or a job or a relationship, if it's not working for you, let it go. If it was meant to be, it would be. But if it's not bringing you happiness, and if it's tearing you apart, then it's time to do some of that spring cleaning and let it go. And I hope that resonates with you, and I hope that this is a time of great change for everyone. But thank you again for watching. I appreciate you guys for being here. Enjoy the rest of the conversations that you're about to hear and see, and let us know what you think. Thanks again.